record. And then when I go to here, and then when I want to go back to my face, how do I?
I just click the Zoom thing on the dock on the, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So so wait a second now. So when I want to go to the full screen, I just put Zoom and that'll, no? Okay, when I want, okay, well, okay, so let's say I'm going to, is it recording?
Yes,
It's still recording.
yes.
So to go full screen, I just do that, okay?
Yeah,
And then how do I get my face back?
then you just click Zoom.
Okay. Okay, Helena. Okay, here we go. This is going live stream. It's being recorded. And I think posterity might be interested in some of these things. So my name is Tony Hall, Anthony Hall. I taught at the University of Lethbridge from 1990 until I retired in 2018. I was at one point 10 years ago told that I would be trespassing on this campus and that I had to leave the campus. And so I'm reflecting 10 years later on that experience and what was behind that experience. And that's been the premise of working up to this event. So here is the essay that I just published at around 2 o'clock, which was to accompany this. Now, this is an academic paper. It's not a multimedia AI extravaganza. This is what we used to think of as an academic paper. And I think, you know, we need to go back to basics a little bit with the nature of the internet these days. So this is what I intended to follow. And I invite people to take a copy of this paper. But what has happened in, I'd say, the last 24 hours is, you know, I've been working on this since we got back from Spain, my wife Helena and I. And so I've had a number of days to be going over this material, and it's voluminous and it's very complicated. And there are many, many topics when it comes to being suspended without pay, going from like 150,000 a year to 0 in one day, to be surprised, pulled out of the classroom because somehow you're such a danger that you have to be immediately sort of escorted off the campus and told, don't you come back or you will be charged with trespassing. And so that's very much on my mind. And so in the last days, as I've been working on this, I've seen things that I haven't seen, made connections. And this morning, I just got up and said, I got to change the script a little bit. I've got to change the plot a little bit because I saw a lot of aspects to this that I hadn't really fully put it together. So I've changed things. So let's start with the prelude, the sort of entry point to this lecture. Here's the name of it, Universities and the Self-Delusions of Power. I actually had the first crack at it after watching the speech of Mark Carney, where he talked about the sort of reality that we live in a system which is kind of dishonest and we kind of go along with it. And it's got all these theories about how we're supposed to act, but we don't really act that way. And it works for some people way better than others. The rules-based international order works very differently for different classes of people. And some people seem to be exempt from the laws, and some people are not. But anyway, I sort of abandoned that approach, but it's still sort of underneath the surface here. So here's to introduce my situation. At this moment, at this place, at this time, this is the first time I've addressed a university audience on campus. Nobody invited me to do this. I'm doing this on my own initiative. And I thought being a professor emeritus on this campus might count for something. But anyway, I'm just sort of going along with the rules and regulations. And here I've made it this far. So see if I can blow it up a bit. Okay, let me try to wrap my tongue around some of these phrases. I must say that writing this introduction was part of what motivated me and helped me see what was really going on here and the importance of cutting to the chase. The unholy trinity of disallowed study. As I stand on this academic turf in the midst of the University of Lethbridge, I remember back a decade to 2016. 10 years ago, the president of the University of Lethbridge pulled me from my teaching in midterm. I was yanked from the classroom and from my faculty position I had held for, at that time, 26 years. I was literally ejected from campus with the warning that I would be trespassing if I stepped foot on the U of L campus again. I was suspended without pay and without due process. Now, I think when we won a court case in 2017, maybe that withdrew this, but it's never been formally withdrawn. Nobody's ever said, no, now you can come back on campus. You're not going to be trespassing anymore. So this is the context that brings me here. This was serious business. From the many letters and emails I received, mostly from people I did not know, I noticed the episode was attracting the attention of attentive individuals here and there throughout the larger academic world. I received a few hundred letters, many of them from people I didn't know in many countries. And there are a class of people who pay attention to these matters of what goes on campus. And the main issues at stake were pretty much universal in the operations of universities globally. Now here I am back at the U of L, giving my first university presentation on territory that, for me, is hotly contested academic turf. Much of this presentation, entitled Universities and the Self-Delusions of Power, deals with forbidden zones of analysis. Because of my insistence on looking behind the wizard's veil, I was deplatformed and defamed. At many institutions of higher learning, the forbidden zone has been stigmatized, branded as the unholy trinity of disallowed study. Elsewhere, it's called the zombie complaint, that I was subjected to a zombie complaint that just kept being renewed and renewed. People don't take a no for an answer. There was a very powerful group, Owen Holmes, Dr. Owen Holmes calls them the Keystone Cops, who just kept chasing me and chasing me and chasing me. So I was suspended without pay for over a year and a half. The triangle of condemnation has three names often used in conjunction. Those names are, guess, Holocaust denial, anti-Semitism, and conspiracy theories. If any one of the terms in this trinity of condemnations, all left conveniently vague and ill-defined, can be made to stick, all hell can break loose. Draconian consequences can occur, including losing one's job and being treated as a terrorist. To be classified arbitrarily as a terrorist is to be stripped of all the legal protections associated with personhood. To be a person means you have rights and responsibilities. If you're not a person like women used to be, like Indians used to be before the 1960s, you're a ward of the state. It's very different. So personhood has a lot of legal resonance. Now, as writing this, I thought, well, I'm going to touch on a big section of what the essay that I wrote, this essay, this paper, this academic essay, and I call it one of the biggest assaults on academic freedom of all time. That's what's going on right now in the United States. And I'm sure there are reverberations of it going on in Canada, but it's not reported. It's not very clear. But I'm making an aside here, and I thought, well, I should cover this part of the presentation. And I, at that point, had not really referred to it in the text that I'm all about to alter. But this this one of the biggest assaults on academic for all time. It describes how institutions of higher learning in the USA are right now being turned upside down by the forced imposition of the Trump regime's embrace and enforcement of the Israel First lobby's agenda. Donald Trump is very much with Israel, is very much with the Zionist cause. Criticism of Israel is equated with anti-Semitism. And anti-Semitism implies uh, implies some sort of sympathy with terrorism. This ridiculous thesis is presently being enforced in hiring and firing. Moreover, federal grants to institutions of higher learning are being withheld uh, uh, for to punish non-compliance. The targets of the assault on academic freedom in higher education include Jewish people, a number of whom have become highly vocal in criticizing Israel, especially since the acceleration of the Palestinian genocide, and that is what some experts are calling it, uh, after October 7, 2023. So return to the main text. Devastating in its implications are the conditions of professional life embodied in the government adoption of the Israel lobby's vague and ill-defined trinity of forbidden zones not meant for deep or open debate. This authoritarian propensity runs against the healthy exercise of free speech, often open debate and academic freedom. And so this is a big theme, and I expect to use considerably less than half of this time. We have 2 hours together, and we're going to be talking, I hope. So I hope we have animated discussion, but that's what is on the agenda. They'll be opening to talk and speak, and I'll be talking about how that might unfold. But for the time being, let's just stick with this presentation, and we'll address what we do with the rest of the time as we get through this. For those in attendance, I hope you will take the academic paper home and read the 25 pages essay on your own. Share it, publish it. It's in the public domain, brand new with many scoops. Who knows? I think it is. I have given myself wide latitude to think and say what I contend needs to be said to hold back the tsunami of censorship, and especially self-censorship. I think universities are terribly censored places these days, and a lot of the censorship is self-censorship. You just think, well, it might be too dangerous to bring that up, or I'll say what I want, but in a qualified, less dramatic way than I really feel. Self-censorship is a big part of how censorship works. And when you see, for instance, in 2016, this professor being suspended without pay, full tenured senior professor, all the rules thrown to the wayside, and it makes an example. And clearly, people were interested in making an example of me. And, I keep looking to the universities for something interesting to come out of the universities on COVID, on, what's going on with taking over the university system, especially Ivy League institutions in the United States. Where is it? Where are the voices? Uh, you know, there's many professors who work here, who have a vested interest in what I'm talking about and took part in one way or another in what happened. Uh, the momentum of the disinformation tsunami in society, including in parts of university curricula, is undeniably growing. Who is acting on the need to protect the academic store, to protect the sanctity of academic freedom? So at this point, I would appreciate if those who are interested, and I hope it's everybody, come up and take the academic paper, because I'm giving an academic paper. And what I'm reading is what I prepared in this academic paper. Uh, uh, but now we're into the part that surprises me. It caught me off guard this morning. It was a moment where I was seeing patterns, and I have had it all written out, what I was going to say in the order I was going to say it, like a paper. And then I started seeing it started with the view, what is not being said? What is the university not saying about what happened in this episode? How come people in Lethbridge might not remember it, or people at the University of Lethbridge? There's no doubt in my mind, this is by far the most serious uh, disruption to the normal workings of this university. It was enormous, and people were kind of dumbfounded. Now, a big part of what helped me make a lot of the connections here. So from this part, this is the sort of meat of the matter, and this is, came together fully for me like at 7, 8, 9 this morning. And I'm putting aside my plan and saying, I've got to go with this. You don't get this chance every day. I've been building up to this for years. It's 10 years. I thought at some point somebody's going to invite me to give my side of the story. It doesn't happen. So here I am. I'm inviting myself. Thank you for coming. Uh, so here we go. Okay. So let's see if I go here. And then, so this is the sign to advertise this presentation made a couple of days ago. And so in this sign, there is an image, and it was a response to sort of wrongly chosen image. But then I found this image, and the image says, Bene Brith wants Lethbridge professor Anthony Hall fired for alleged anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. The zombie complaint. Now, that's a smoking gun, because that's just not supposed to happen. 4 days later, it did happen, only they couldn't completely just fire me. I guess it was calculated that they wanted to, but I'm tenured, so they suspended me. You're gone out of the classroom. You can't come on campus. Uh, and of course, all of this is covered, blanket covered in the media. And it feels a bit strange to read this on September the 30th. And then 4 days later, I am suspended. So this particular article here, I would say, I'm almost sure it was prepared by B'nai B'rith Canada, that it has a staff and they do this regularly. They target people for defamation. They don't like criticism of Israel. The Anti-Defamation League in the United States works on this. And this is, a big time assault on academic freedom. There's no lobby anywhere close to the kind of damage to academic freedom that the Israel First Zionist lobby does. And we'll get into proving that. But in this particular case, I'm almost sure this was basically the handoff from B'nai B'rith to the university, whose president then was Dr. Mike Mahan. And the Board of Governors is technically the one doing many of these things. So it says here in the subtitle, Hall being actively investigated by the University of Lethbridge, but cleared by police. Oh, there it is. How do you feel? You come into a class, there's a professor. Well, it's okay. He was just cleared by police. It's obviously a calculated, way of slamming somebody, of discrediting somebody. And I'm going to get in, how come the police were involved? And then I read down and I read that Anthony Hall co-hosts a weekly YouTube show called False Flag Weekly News, which allegedly promotes the notion of a Zionist conspiracy to foster hatreds of Muslims through false flag terror events, beginning with 9/11. B'nai B'rith alleges that Hall is a proponent of what he refers to as open debate on the Holocaust. Well, who would not be in favor of open debate on the Holocaust? Should we have censorship? You can't talk about it? Well, that's basically what it amounts to, because if you say anything about it that isn't just according to, say, Schindler's List, you're a Holocaust denier. And it's serious to be called a Holocaust denier. People lose their job for that kind of thing. A supporter of Holocaust deniers like Monica Schaefer, and has even accused Israel of playing a key role in the September 11, 2001 terrorist attack. Well, what happened on 9/11? Is there a consensus? Do we know, was it really psycho Muslims getting together organized and taking down 3 towers and hijacking planes and working this all out? Or is there a lot of uncertainty? And there certainly are a lot of signs pointing to the fact that Israel or Israel First lobbyists had something to do with it. They were about to go to war in Muslim majority countries. And there was certainly an interest in causing people to have contempt for Muslims. Because when you're going to invade Muslim majority countries, and that was the plan after 9/11, and that's what happened, beginning in Iraq and Afghanistan, it's easier to just call Muslims terrorists. The Palestinians in Gaza right now, how often are they're just referred to casually every day as they're terrorists. And once you call somebody a terrorist, you can't invoke your right of innocent till proven guilty or all of that. Arbitrary things can be done to you. And I'm pretty sure that I was a test case, that they were trying to fashion me as a professorial terrorist. That the reason I had to be pulled out of the class so quickly was B'nai B'rith was developing this concept. Well, he's teaching his students things like, I'm a professor of Native American studies. This concept of looking at Israel, well, what about the experience of Native Americans since 1492? Isn't it rather similar to the experience of Palestinians since 1948? And wouldn't it make sense in doing an academic analysis to see some parallels there? So, so this article here is, extremely rich. I could read the whole thing and stop and discuss it, but the Facebook post. The Facebook post is, I've tried to explain it again and again and again. It's a really ugly post saying a white man is strangling a Orthodox Jew with a terrible screed of text saying, kill all Jews. Uh, the Holocaust didn't happen, but it should have. It's written in a very provocative way. And it was on my Facebook, so I found out later for about 2 hours, and all kinds of pictures were taken about it. And then this became the way to kind of smear me. And anyway, we'll go into that. I've written about it in this paper, the Facebook post. And was the university involved in planning this? Was Mike Mon part of the plan to make this part of the narrative about why I was suspended? Well, we'll see. Yes, he was involved in it. So then we hear about these internal investigations. This Planet Facebook post, Bene Brith is sending it out all over, North America and Europe, and the university is getting people writing back, thinking, never again. There's a petition, and suddenly I kept reading in the paper, the Lethbridge Herald, there's all these investigations taking place. Well, what are you using as your data? Who's putting together these investigations? Investigating people, according to the collective agreement, there are rules and regulations. So it seems the university's position was, well, we're reporting him to the Human Rights Tribunal. And so they did that and never bothered to say when they did that, the Human Rights Tribunal sent it back and said, no, we won't accept it. We're not investigating him. So okay, that's the importance of this video. Bene Brith, Mahan administration collaboration, the Bene Brith Mahan administration collaboration through the summer of 2016 took place with Amanda Holman and Ryan Belrose. These folks belong to something called Bene Brith League of Human Rights. So after the fact, when we were building up to a court case, the CAUT, the Canadian Association of University Teachers, hired somebody they know and trust to do a Freedom of Information search. And one of the things that I saw in this was that there were secret emails going back and forth between Andy Haken and Amanda Holman, and they were planning this. And I think that essentially Bene Brith was putting out feelers saying, is it okay if we call this guy a Holocaust denier? Are you going to do anything? Or maybe it was Goldie Morgentaler who was pushing this agenda. Or maybe it was the University of Lethbridge who invited Bene Brith in. I don't know, but there's a lot of collaboration. Go to the academic paper Facebook scam. And when I say the paper, this is what I mean. So you could read about my comments on the Facebook scam on page 18 to 20. I covered it fairly in detail. But I wasn't seeing the larger pictures. Dr. Mahan's description of the suspension on page 20 and 21. Dr. Mahan and Schechter's U of L board tried to fire me based on planted Facebook scam. Dr. Mahan himself is deeply complicit in this scam. No due diligence, no investigation. Why didn't the University of Lethbridge look into this allegation that somehow it was connected to this terrible Facebook image and text? Now, when I talk about that, so the police didn't do an investigation. The Bene Brith sent this planted post and said, we would like you to consider arresting Hall. And they said, well, we looked at it, it was pretty bad, but not about bad enough to charge him. So I just picked this out as a one item that I did the research on this, and this is the image here of of the there's the screed, the text, and this is an image. Now this has been photoshopped in this face here, but in any case, the person who created this image, I was told by Ben Garrison, a very famous cartoonist who lived in Montana. Joshua Goldberg did this post, and so this author goes into it, and Goldberg is now supposedly in penitentiary in the United States because he created false people. He imitated people. He imitated himself as a Islamic terrorist going to the Pam Geller event, where they had a contest to see who could make the best satire of Muhammad. And so this Joshua Goldberg is quite a character. It's quite a story. It's almost too fantastic to believe, but I've got the footnotes and I'll go into more detail on this. So what I'm doing in this situation here is I'm connecting all the things not written about, not publicized by the University of Lethbridge when they explain whatever it is that they say happened. Like, for instance, the court case happened, which our side, the University of Lethbridge Faculty Association and CAUT, we were victorious. The Board of Governors and Dr. Mann were defeated in court. And that's pretty consequential. Whereas the news reports of it? Wasn't even in the newspaper. I've never seen anything like that go on in our own court. I was in the court when it was all being heard. And so let's see. Okay. Just strange things weren't reported. All the things not described on the U of L website, a catharsis for me. New dots connected, last night change, especially right here. So the planted Facebook post scam. So I'm looking at all the things not described in the U of L website or many other places. Then comes on page 2021 of the following. Now, this is a sort of a Eureka moment. There is one post, a very prominent post in the U of L website, and it's described here by Owen Holmes, one of the founders of the university. He's a chemist, did his PhD at Berkeley. He was the first dean of the University of Lethbridge. He was a vice president academic. He he understood the gravity of this matter, and he started writing things about it. And so I will quote from two things he wrote about it. One to James Compton, who the president of CAUT, and he gives a really very important account of what really happened at the University of Lethbridge. And he also, I'm going to quote at length, his letter to Jackie Flanagan at the Alberta Views. He led them into the article, and they did the usual Zionist spin on the article, and it really upset him. So so in the letter to the CAUT president, Dr. Holmes refers to a U of L website post that was first published on the U of L site on October 13th. So September 30th, the article in the CBC, which we went into. September 3rd and 4th, I'm suspended without pay, told I have to get off the campus or I'll be a trespasser. And already by October 13, 2 weeks after the CBC article, he's got an explanation. And the post of October 13 is still up 10 years later. It hasn't been taken down. Why would that be? The item is entitled Message from President Mike Mann to the University Community, Dr. Anthony Hall Suspension. The excerpt of Dr. Mann's post chosen by Dr. Holmes is the following. According to Dr. Mann, 10 days after the suspension, then we get into the direct quote here. And if you could be following this on this page, on these pages here, I've mentioned where to look. This action is not focused on Dr. Hall's published scholarship driven by the complaints of students or the demands of external advocacy groups. This is Mann saying, we've suspended this person not because of any complaints students were making, not because of his scholarship, and not because of the demands of external advocacy groups. Well, didn't we just see that they said B'nai B'rith, asked U of L to fire Anthony Hall? Like, I'm pretty sure this is written by B'nai B'rith. And I can certainly say without, sue me, Dr. Mann, but you're lying. You had a lot to do with external advocacy groups. And that is a no-no for, you have a fiduciary responsibility to protect the university. Okay, and then, Dr. Mann's justification for his illegal suspension of me, he totally disregards my tenured status, my academic record, and my teaching record. And what does he write? Instead, Dr. Mann refers to YouTube-based videos and comments in social media that have been characterized as being the zombie complaint, anti-Semitic, supportive of Holocaust denial, and engagement in conspiracy theories. These things are repeated again and again. So, I worked 15 years on writing these university books published by McGill Queen's University Press. And they, received good reviews all over the world and was chosen by the Independent in UK as one of the best books in history in the English language. Just ignore that. You're doing, Facebook posts or, this current situation of where, Facebook posts, how many people's careers are being destroyed by Facebook posts, by Instagram posts. It's intolerable. What a disgrace to the academy that administrators decide that how you judge people is, through the most ephemeral possible element of, the media. So now when I looked at this is what I wrote about it. Before thinking about it as I am right now and explaining it as I am right now. As the top official of a significant academic institution, Dr. Mann replicates the zombie complaint to a T. As I say, Owen Holmes comes up with this term, the zombie complaint, that just never goes away. In embracing Israel First lobby sloganeering, the U of L president does not even base his case on his own judgment. Instead, he introduces weasel words pointing to the verdict coming from some unnamed sources, no attribution, who made characterizations. So he doesn't even have the courage to say, I think they're, Holocaust denial, conspiracy theories, and anti-Semitism. All he can say is some unknown person or people characterize them. And then it hit me. For sure, what he's talking about is the planted Facebook post and all the controversy it set up. And so I am somehow to blame for the post that was put on me, maybe with his own complicity, Dr. Mann's own complicity. And then he uses this as the justification. And he won't even take, attribution is pretty important in the academy. You just can't say, well, somebody told me this, therefore, it's true. Uh, Now, by landing his blow while hiding behind someone else's assessment, the U of L president commits a serious academic misdemeanor, especially given the magnitude and professional implications of the word he uses. Here's another part of Dr. Mann's justification. Dr. Mann goes on to say, to allege that I, Tony Hall, have created an environment that is discriminatory for students and his faculty colleagues whose personal backgrounds, research topics, and beliefs are at odds with Dr. Hall's stated views. So I guess the idea is we're supposed to be one big happy family and not disagree. And here's a guy who is discordant with everybody else's background, their beliefs, their theories. And so what do? You just empower an administrator to shoot him in the back and eliminate him and get back to the happy family. And this gets to Dr. Widowson's case, where this idea that, well, we've got a big majority of people who want a certain interpretation of residential schools, and Dr. Widowson doesn't fit that. So let's just cancel her, and let's just violate Paul Viminance's academic freedom because that's who he chose to invite. And it happens. And so some of us, it made a big impact to be there in early February of 2023 to watch hundreds of people removing Dr. Widowson and condemning her as some kind of terrible person because her interpretation and her husband Herb, and they go way back together, and they've written about the Aboriginal industry, and they are critics of the way some professional people exploit the treatment of Aboriginal peoples and sort of encourage what they would view as a sort of romantic notion that somehow Indigenous people can go back to their traditional ways and bring this enlightenment into society as a whole, which as a Native American Studies professor, I was sort of doing that myself. I very much loved being in the Native American Studies department. So this is something that Francis and I share in common, that we have this interest, but our interpretations are quite different. Dr. So what I'm going to do from here on in is leave. Okay, no, I'm not going through the different points. So this is, really, this is new revelations for me to see things this clearly, to see how the planted Facebook post was indeed the technique that broke my reputation, that put me on the defensive, that caused people who wouldn't know me from Adam to develop this impression that this is some sort of hateful person who wants to kill all Jews. Dr. Mann's reasoning here is very flawed. I've said this. Okay, the court case of Dr. Mann, Chairman Schlechter, and the Board of Governors was lost in court to CAUT and the University of Lethbridge Faculty Association, chaired by Andrea Amelix. I'm glad to get her name in here. Maybe she in the first phase of this, the University of Lethbridge did very assertively stand up against the Board of Governors until we got into court. And when we got into court, well, our side won. And so here is the legal case. Not a word of it in the Lethbridge Herald, not a word of it in the Toronto Star, not a word of it on CBC. And the conclusion is, for the reasons given, I dismiss the university's application for a stay of the director's appointment. The university administration would not accept the mediator, the appointed mediator. So they're going to have to accept that, or an arbitrator, and grant the faculty association's application for summary judgment, dismissing the university's judicial review application. A judicial review, they wanted to open the court right up to a several-day session on, why Tony Hall is such a dangerous man in the campus. Interestingly, the government of Alberta, entered the trial, not to say we're going to go in and say Tony Hall is a good guy, but the ruling that the Board of Governors were demanding was so extreme, thought the Solicitor General of the government of Alberta, that it would distort the labor relations. If they got a precedent, it would distort the whole labor relations equilibrium. And so they went into court to make that point. And we'll see that becomes very significant. So uh-oh. Yeah. Okay, another one is the threat of censure promised by the Canadian Association of University Teachers if it did not clean up, if the administration did not clean up its act in dealing with the grievances it garnered from the neglect of the collective agreement. So here is that letter from the Canadian Association of University Teachers, which is by far the most important central academic institution on the faculty side. It's an association of all the faculty associations in Canada. And they passed a motion saying that what was going on at the University of Lethbridge was so severe that if they didn't fix up the situation, the University of Lethbridge would be publicly censured, not censored, but censured. Basically, it would be known around the world that the University of Lethbridge was a terrible place, because if the matter is not resolved satisfactorily and in a timely way, we will be pursuing other options, including imposing censure on your administration for violations of due process, natural justice, and academic freedom and tenure rights. Academic freedom and tenure rights. That's a serious intervention. Just covered up. Nowhere. Look for it on the internet. So this is, as I'm going through this morning, and I'm just getting more and more like, this is like sweeping history under the rug. This is like, the last thing you should be expecting from the upper echelon of a university. This is the kind of a sleazy action of PR, of people, so hungry to get donors, willing to sacrifice anything for money. And so here I'm saying these provocative words, I suppose. And while I'm at it down here, but we're not through the list. This is something that I wrote. So here is the Planet Facebook post. There never was I can look at this text elsewhere. But anyway, this is the famous post. And and Facebook posted it, and then they said, "Kill all Jews is now an acceptable message," Facebook says. So Benny Brith is basically, Facebook is getting into, they want to censor Facebook, and they're sort of preparing the mental attitude. And I think my case was used like, well, if we're going to let this kill all Jews statement in Facebook, is that okay? Like, is that even community standards or something? So I think Facebook itself, the company, was part of this whole scheme. Calgary police investigating anti-Semitic post on Facebook. Well, be a university professor and have this just appear. I think it's when Andrew Blair, who has documented a lot about these days in the case, I think you ran up into this case at Benny Brith. You were looking at the website, I remember you telling me. Facebook allows kill all Jews post on wall of professor. They actually attribute the creation of the post and the posting on my wall to Glenn Davidson, somebody who lives in Lethbridge. I talked to him. He said he didn't post it. He was penalized himself, but they developed this view that it's comes from somewhere else, but within a flash, it's attributed to me. In Toronto, Facebook removes anti-Semitic post after online blowback. This is an article by the famous Bernie Farber, formerly head of the Congress, CJC. What is that? The Canadian Jewish Congress. Yes. And Bernie Farber started the Anti-Hate Network, which was saying, you know, the truckers were anti-Semites. Bernie Farber is a huge a figure in all of this. So there he is in a Toronto newspaper holding forth about this. Here's what the real picture on the bottom was, but here's what happened. Okay, so this is hard to read. It's just like poison going across your lips. It's really a dastardly, disgusting, ugly screed. There was never a Holocaust, but there should have been, and assured there will be, as you serpentine kikes richly deserve one. I will not rest until every single filthy parasitic kike is rounded up and slaughtered like the vermin that they are. The white man has been more than enough, has had more than enough of international Jewry, and we are fully prepared to smite the parasite for the millionth time. The greedy hook-nosed kikes know that their days are measured, and unlike in the past, they now have nowhere to run. I guess somebody could just film me saying these words and saying, well, look, they are coming from his mouth. It really creates a dilemma when you're trying to explain this situation. And the only way you can explain it is saying, no, I'm serious. This was a really awful, awful creation, almost like it's written by a lawyer to create evidence in some kind of trial to show, this person is inciting people to violence. It's imagine being smeared with this publicly. This time there will be no kikes left alive to spread around the planet like cockroaches. We will get them all into the oven, and their putrid memory will finally be erased from the planet once and for all. Like all parasites, the Jew will continue to reproduce until every single last one has been wiped out. This is why it is, since every last one has been wiped out, this is why it is crucial that all kikes are ruthlessly and mercilessly butchered for the good of us all. Kill all Jews now, every last one. Ben Tel Aviv Terror Garrison. That's why I ended up getting in touch with him to say, your name's on this. And he said, oh, this guy does it to me all the time, dresses him up in, Nazi suits and depicts him. He's a cartoonist, a very famous cartoonist nowadays. Ben Garrison, he lives in Montana. So, and one of the people behind this is Shimon Koffler-Fogel, because it's not just B'nai B'rith Canada. There's the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, which is kind of like APAC in the United States. It's kind of the central thing. This is a tremendously powerful guy. He's sort of in the deep state in all the government, committees and such. So let's leave this and get back to here's the Lethbridge Herald. I'm still going. Here's me, hours after, even shorter after I was told what was going on. I was suspended without pay. And here's the letter suspending me. Your Facebook pages are being used for virulent anti-Semitic comments. This is what I'm being charged with as I'm being told I have to leave as a trespasser on the campus, inferring that Israelis and hence Jewish individuals were responsible for the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center of September 11. So I do stand by the fact that, yes, I do look into 9/11. I think it's an important academic subject. It's a legitimate academic subject. There's no real consensus about what happened. And it speaks very poorly of the University of Lethbridge and Dr. Mann that he chooses to emphasize that. And then, here are my own articles on 9/11. Here's Joshua Goldberg. This is a story trending in BBC. Here he is now supposedly in prison. This is a very significant place. This is Michael Moston, the head of B'nai B'rith Canada. So let's go. Let's go back to. Well. How do I get back into the? Oh, I know. So, so I'm back in the main article here. So, so I see it's past 5. I said I wouldn't take up over half of the time, and I have lots more that I intended to do, but this is a revelation. I think it becomes completely clear to me that Dr. Mann was he was playing in and around the planted Facebook matter. Now, if he had any doubt, given you heard the kind of language it was, I'll just end on this because this has bothered me. Like, say Dr. Mann was reading that post and saying, well, this is coming from one of our faculty members or somebody who's sympathetic with this idea. And his fiduciary duty, his responsibility to protect the people at the University of Lethbridge, students, faculty, staff, all the community, would be to pick up the phone and say, well, what if I actually was in my bedroom writing and something clicked and I lost my mind? And wouldn't it be important to check to make sure that didn't happen? But he didn't. Why didn't he? Well, maybe he knew this was all a charade. And so he did not do due diligence. And I think that should go with him, when his career is summed up. He put at risk the entire community because people do walk into schools with guns, they shoot people, things like that do happen. People do lose their mind in a second sometimes. Things like that can happen. So I'll kind of leave it at that. But this is a moment of catharsis for me to connect these things and see what wasn't covered. What was covered was, well, he's not being suspended for student complaints, for his scholarship. He's being suspended for posts, social media posts. And let's face it, it's a planted Facebook post. and I've written about that. So I've finally made that cycle. So what aren't we being told? What else is being swept under the rug? What could we expect of the kind of censorship that we see that treat those things as unnecessary, but bring up an October 13, 2016 piece from the internet, from the U of L website, and present that as the beginning, middle, and end of what happened to Tony Hall. Now, when I retired, Owen Holmes said Tony had come to realize for some time he could never return to the toxic authoritarian administrative environment, now strangling scholarship at the University of Lethbridge. So that's Owen Holmes. Michael Mostyn at B'nai B'rith, he wrote this about my retirement. This is a monumental and precedent-setting victory for human rights in Canada, said Michael Mostyn, CEO of B'nai B'rith Canada, in a release to the Herald. B'nai B'rith commends our supporters for keeping pressure on the university, the government of Alberta, and ultimately on Hall himself. I didn't get into Goldie Morgentaler at all, but her role in this is much bigger than I'd realized. Goldie gave a paper in 2018 at the Canadian Jewish Studies Conference. The Learned Conferences in Montreal. I was there at those Learned Conferences. They're a big deal in Canada. And she presented a paper, and the title of her paper was The Strange, Sad Story of Professor Tony Hall and the University That Could Not Get Rid of Him. Hey, Goldie, here I am. I think you're back in Toronto. I'm here. I'm still here. Thank you. Now, as I say, nobody invited me to do this. It took basically all autumn to sort of find out and go through the proper channels. So I am the host, I am the organizer, and I am the speaker. And at one point it said you should be the only speaker. But no, we're not going to do that. And it just so happens that Dr. Francis Widdowson, who is pretty much the most covered figure in university affairs in Canada right now, here she is. And we're not standing outside of a building with people shouting and screaming at one another. And we're actually doing something inside the university that should be noticed. Of course, the Lethbridge Herald isn't here. I'm still blacklisted by the Lethbridge Herald. But in any case, so the cat's out of the bag. Francis and I have been working together. Dave Charette has been working with us. And so perhaps Francis would like to hold forth, or Francis and Paul, or whatever feels comfortable to you, or maybe you'd want to skip a couple of beats. And Andrew Blair has come, and Andrew Blair started writing about this case as it was unfolding. He was doing a website which is still up and I would like to think that this renews the website, right? The story is still going. I'm not, I don't feel this matter is resolved. And I don't feel that, having to go in front of some judge who maybe is bought and paid for, who maybe is bored by the whole matter, maybe is a good friend of the Israel First Lobby. Like, can't we do it a different way to deal with the problems inside our school? To me, this is an act of loyalty to the University of Lethbridge, where I am a professor emeritus yet. And so I'm trying to make my school a better place. Thank you. So you want to take it away, or? Okay. What's that?
I said, certainly you should open one.
Yeah, let's open the floor then. Yes.
Did you say that that Facebook post was only up for 2 hours and then it disappeared again?
Yes. Now, whatever the story is of the Facebook post is what B'nai B'rith relates. So when you read it, I did read a version of what had happened. As they put the post up, then they immediately came out with write to Facebook and tell them this shouldn't be up. It's too gross. And and then a continuing campaign was write to Mike Mann at the University of Lethbridge. But then I did notice it said 2 hours. So that's the story, that it was up for 1 hour, 2 hours. Then Ryan Belrose claims to have discovered it. And he went immediately to the police and said, anybody who's associated with this. He went on CBC and talked with David Gray, Ryan Belrose. Anyway, so he came up with a whole story. He was interviewed by B'nai B'rith. Helena, what's going on?
I was thinking, shouldn't the camera be on you instead of that printed word?
Well, anyway, that's really none of our business. So, so that's the story I got. What the real story is, I'm not entirely sure. It was timed so that I was in Kansas when that was published, and I wasn't, following my Facebook regularly. But basically in that 2 hours, of course, they photograph it, they capture it, and then they say, on professor's wall, and then in the Freedom of Information, they send out copies saying, these were my words, and they send it to the premier, to the solicitor general, to all kinds of officials, and it's really insidious. And then, people start to write as if there's a guy at University of Lethbridge who's saying, kill all Jews and he should be gotten rid of. And, and then you're on the back foot. And, so how do you explain it? And then they start coming at you with other things.
So could you have gotten some kind of forensic audit of your Facebook account for someone to see that it was put up and taken down? Like, did anybody help you with that? And prove yourself?
Well, and when they take it to the police, wouldn't the police be sort of obligated to do an investigation rather than just say, well, it's pretty bad, but Hall, it's not bad enough to charge him. The school could have investigated it and done that. B'nai B'rith itself could have done that, but B'nai B'rith, I think, uses that post to defame other people. The number of people who don't look into it, the Toronto Star could have done it, the Lethbridge Herald could have done it, and on and on. So I researched it pretty hard, to find Joshua Goldberg and, to come up with all of that. And nobody involved ever wants to revisit that question. I did, this is my response to, I missed the part about the internal investigation. I missed that, but this is my complaint about what I went through with their suspending me when it finally got to within the university. And of course, I explained the Facebook post scam in here and many other things. 500 pages, not even looked at by a law professor, Dr. Eric Adams, who worked with Michelle Helstein. Helstein was like the prosecutor in the internal process. Eric Adams was kind of played the role of judge, so the prosecutor and the judge. And it was, a secretive process. Goldie Morgenthaler was involved. She wasn't supposed to be. She was on the faculty association. I didn't get into that final thing, but as it is, we're over time anyway. Yeah.
So I say, if you switch your screen, then people can see your, oh yeah, instant money. You can hold up your picture, your finger again, because you can,
Oh,
there it is. Show how big it
you
is.
can see it?
Now we can,
Uh, Really?
in this one.
Yeah,
It's on my screen.
yeah. So anyway, it's 500 pages. And I really felt wounded, terribly wounded, going in front of this process and this process and this process, all of them trying to get something on me, get a conviction, get some, and they never actually did. And so when I retired, I became professor emeritus. And I feel, well, if I was, so terrible, how come I'm in good standing and eligible to be professor emeritus? But then I get in and try to do something. I tried to do this on the basis of being professor emeritus, and well, it was Michelle Halstein who was the person in charge of it ultimately. I did at some point say, well, she's kind of in a conflict of interest on this matter, but she became provost. She became, vice president. She replaced Andy Haken. And so Owen Holmes goes into, the logic in their reporting. They tried to say, well, he's guilty of not having research integrity, scholarly integrity. They sort of invent this. But in fact, according to Holmes, Dr. Holmes, it's sort of like the university needs protection from me. It's like mostly academic freedom is the professor who's out there articulating needs protection from the school, from external people like B'nai B'rith who might want to try to harm me, or that's why we have tenure. But the way Michelle Helstein and Dr. Adams approached it, the university needs protection to make sure that they're not going to be harmed by somebody who's not doesn't have research integrity. Owen Holmes looked at that and said, "I never heard that of anything of that in all my years." And lack of research integrity might mean like cheating on money, plagiarizing, uh, and he did quite a study and said, it doesn't make sense to use that. So he actually calls it. There wasn't a bit of merit to this argument. It was all a fantasy. Uh, and anyway, I didn't go into that, but there I am now. Yes.
I want to think about the mismatch between the Joshua Goldberg thing on your Facebook and what was being presented on False Flag Weekly News by you and Kevin Barrett, which those YouTubes were available publicly. I saw every one from about the summer of 2016 to, I don't know, sometime 2018, 2019, I'm not sure when I stopped watching them all. But it was utterly and completely, glaringly at odds with the attitudes and views that you and Kevin were expressing on the YouTube videos, and faculty, the public, anybody could have seen that there was that what was shown on Facebook was not in the least representative of the kinds of things that you were thinking.
False Flag Weekly News was its own show. It wasn't on Facebook. It had its own slot. And so it, I lost my train of thought there. Yeah, so its tone, I saw, in the Freedom of Information, a pile like this thick of False Flag Weekly News, where somebody had gone through it, and every time the word Jewish or Israel or, Israel first, or, a mosque or a synagogue, where they were all underlined. So somebody went through False Flag Weekly News with a fine-tooth comb. I suspect that Goldie Morgenthaler, she was getting calls from Toronto, where she grew up. Her father is a famous doctor who changed the world when it came to abortion. I grew up in Toronto, and people in Toronto were saying, "Who's this guy on Falsified Weekly News that we keep seeing?" And that's how she got the idea to do a complaint. Uh, so Dr. Barrett is, a Muslim himself. He's a convert, and I liked very much doing an internet discussion. Of course, every week we were looking at the latest thing to blow up, and it was always being done by some Muslim, uh, you know, terrorists who were known to police, and they were either killed or they left their passport, or it was one, in Munich or San Bernardino or the gay nightclub. Where was that? It was week by week, and you just came to see that this is a setup. Uh, so do you want to hold forth?
I think I can ask, let's just keep it open, the question and answer. So in your suspension letter.
Why don't you come up? It's okay. Yeah.
There's 3 reasons. Is Mike Mon gave 3 reasons for your suspension? Is that correct?
Yeah. The first was, things being put on your Facebook wall that seem to be anti-Semitic. The second one was a weird wording of, everybody knows that it was Muslims who did 9/11, and you say Jewish individuals might have been involved. I think it was written in that strange way because they're looking for discrimination against Jewish individuals. It was written in a strange way. The third one, which Maysoon Rice, who we just were seeing in London a few days ago, I was going into a meeting with Andy Haken and Craig Cooper, who was Dean of Arts and Science, to talk about a really vicious piece that appeared in the Lethbridge Herald. And so remind me your question again.
Yeah, I wanted, because I was interested in, it's about the 3 reasons for your.
The 3 reasons. So that third reason was, she told me, ask them if they're Jewish. Like I thought, well, I knew Andy Haken definitely wasn't, but Cooper maybe. And I thought, well, that makes sense because, given the centrality of the Jewish question in all of this, if one of them was Jewish, like, why not ask? So that was the third one, that he asked that question, and somehow that question shows, grave disrespect, or you can't ask that question of a person's identity.
Well, the second point, was it the position of the University of Lethbridge that the question of 9/11 and who's responsible for 9/11, that was not protected by academic freedom?
Well, it was very weird because, I've actually read about the subject and written some things about the subject. It's not my main thing by any means. But anyway, I think Dr. Mann was basically saying, well, I know better than my faculty. To me, it's obvious that everybody knows Muslims did 9/11. So the fact that you're not going along with that orthodoxy shows, you should be suspended. You're not worthy. You're creating some kind of discriminatory situation. And I thought it's really ridiculous when administrators start to think, well, we have these experts in the field, they do research, but the administrators will decide if it's true or not. And to me, it just, it's another thing that should go into his memoirs, or his obituary, that he decided he was going to straighten out the question on 9/11 on his own discretion. He's not citing anybody. He's not saying, I've consulted with other experts and they tell me this. He's just, of his own authority, says this is the reason I'm suspending you, and I'm sending you, and I'm saying you may have violated Alberta human rights law and be in hot water with the Alberta Human Rights Commission, because that was the alibi to get around saying, well, you violated the collective agreement. In the paper, it just says, well, he is under investigation at the Human Rights Commission. They don't say that the university made the complaint, and they did make a complaint, but it was not accepted by the Alberta Human Rights Commission.
In your case, when your case actually did go to investigation, what was the university's position on having these discussions and examining the causes of 9/11? Did they have to come to any kind of definitive?
Well, good line of questioning, because that's where I wanted to invite my own expert witness in the process. And that person is Graham McQueen, Dr. Graham McQueen, who teaches at McMaster University. He's now passed away. So the condition was that Eric Adams wanted this to be in private. I wouldn't be there. This would be on the phone. And so Professor McQueen said, no, I'm not doing that, going in, in a dark corner, away from Tony, away from the public record, and going to give testimony under those circumstances. So he bowed out. And the whole secret nature, like there were hearings that took place in Edmonton that I couldn't come to in the dark. It was a terrible process. That it was the worst of all of them. And it was just the zombie complaint, one last kick at it. Shelley Wismath was on it, the famous plagiarist case that Shelley Wismath was involved in. She was one of the key people. Who chose this Eric Adams? I wasn't allowed to take notes. In the one day I was there, he was the only one who could take notes. And I'm getting tired, it's tired, but just remind me what we're at, lead me through this.
I'm just trying to determine, it seems to me to be an academic question.
Yeah, so
why 9/11 occurred, and there's probably different competing, viewpoints on it. And it just seems to me a bit odd that University of Lethbridge would, if they did, I'm still not clear whether they came up with it. You have to teach about 9/11 and
in a certain way.
In a certain way or not, whether they actually made that kind of determination.
Yeah. Now, as I recall, and it's like, it's sort of a nightmare day for me, because I was being interrogated. I was being told about the testimony of people, and I didn't see them give testimony. And Eric Adams was actually bragging. I'm not sure the exact words he used, but essentially he conveyed that he is a Nazi hunter, that he's done this before, and that he has a record in this. Now, who appointed him to that role? And I'm suspecting that it might have been Goldie Morgenthaler that had a big role in it. That's a strong thing to say, but he said something along those lines, that somehow he has made a kind of secretive career at hunting down anti-Semitic people in the university. And, so how did that happen? Why was that committee completely hostile to me? Why didn't the faculty association see that at least somebody on the committee was known as a kind of advocate for academic freedom?
Sorry, I don't want to get off the subject, but I'm wondering, I want to talk about the idea of constantly using the term Semite instead of Jewish.
Yeah.
And Semitism is a race. Judaism is a religion. But we never talk about Judaism. We always refer to Jews as Semites. So that makes opposition to Judaism racist. That's why they do it. No doubt about it. And we should be having discussions about Judaism because it's a religion and all religion is bullshit. So now we have to take that into consideration, and Jews who want to be Jews should be standing up and saying why it's logical or right to have something as irrational as a religion as you believe.
Okay, so this concept of who are Semites, my impression is that it's a category of languages as well.
Completely Semite.
What's that?
It's a race.
Well, I understand that, but let me just present another element of this. It could also be looked at as a language family. Arabic is a Semitic language. So
I think we're like,
for sure, the real unimpeachable Semites in the picture are the Palestinians. They, they speak Semitic language. They are Semites. And the idea that Ashkenazi Jews from Europe, who migrate in from Europe, call Palestinians who they think don't like them, that they're using this term anti-Semitism, while the Palestinians really have the much higher claim to that identity as Semites. So, and especially, the Ashkenazi Jews and their background as Europeans is pretty obvious when you see them. They're the most powerful group within the Jewish world. They have the better jobs, the richer, more successful. The Sephardic Jews, the Jews from the Muslim world or from the Arab world, they're even discriminated against within Israel. So this whole topography, this whole use of anti-Semitism, it's ridiculous. And as you say, there's it's implying that, well, we all come from this part of the world, from the Semitic part of the world. And then when you criticize us, you're being racist because we are a specific, part of that race. It's nonsensical, and it has a way it's been exploited. And I agree with you on, much of what you're saying.
so we should be referring to the ideology that we oppose, not the race that it's disguising behind.
And of course, this element, this name Zionism, I had a long, in my original paper, I have a long sort of thesis on all about that. So, I've been particularly interested in what happened to Zionism between 1896, when Herzl wrote his book, Der Judenstaat, the Jewish state, and 1948. And so Zionism, there were many schools of Zionists and this whole debate, should we move to Palestine and develop some sort of nationality? If so, should it be a socialist, many, a very powerful impetus within the Jewish community is socialism, especially after, 1917, and a lot of Jewish people were involved in that. So then you get 1948 and the beginning of the Nakba, the slow genocide, and then in 2023 you get the accelerated genocide, and it definitely is a genocide. And I had the genocide convention written out. It's very short. There's no arguing that there isn't genocide going on there. But of course, some would say, oh, it's Israel doing legitimate self-defense. And it's all Hamas, Hamas, Hamas. And Hamas, of course, Netanyahu in particular, has a big history of using Hamas to keep the Palestinian people divided, the West Bank people from the Gaza people. And he can say, well, who am I supposed to negotiate a Jewish, a Palestinian state with? So, there's so much disinformation, but anyway, is it a genocide or not? Now, all of this takes on a new meaning. I mean, I haven't had anybody come up and say to me, oh, Tony, what you were warning us about back in 2016 when you were looking at this Israel-Palestine question and saying, there's trouble there, there's an imbalance there, there's a unfairness, there's a danger there. Nobody's come up to me and said, well, I guess you kind of had a point back in 2016 when you were being persecuted for drawing attention to a propensity, a pattern that has now taken the form of the most cruel genocide. I've never read or heard about anything like it. When I read about Auschwitz, they're not bombing hospitals. In fact, they have hospitals in Auschwitz. Even if the gas chamber story is true and there was an industrial, production of 6 million dead people, I mean, to be put in in a shower and then gassed immediately and you die right there, that's pretty gentle compared to what the people in Gaza are going through, where they're being starved, raped, where journalists are being killed for recording it, where hospital officials, humanitarian workers are being killed by the dozens. And then how many people are really, really dead? And to say that this is somehow the fault of Hamas, it just depends on the kind of ignorance that, I wanted to address in my paper. Remember, there's a paper here, and a big part of this paper is giving the history. Because if you get involved in a debate about what's going on in Gaza, is it genocide, is it not? You just look at the present of what's going on. You really have to go back to how did it start? Where did Zionism come from? How did it evolve? How did it, make a big score with the Balfour Declaration? What about Resolution 181, where they were?
That's the difference.
Uh, well, it's a shape-shifting thing. It's an ethnicity. It's a race. It's a religion. Like depending on, and that's part of the complexity of that particular identity. Because if you want to talk about it as a religion, then they'll become something different. Or, there's a lot of shape-shifting that goes on. And the original Zionists were mostly secular, a lot of the founding of Israel was socialist, was atheist. A lot of, and the Jewish religion seems to be able to handle people who don't agree with the religion, and yet somehow they remain in their mind proud Jews who are, want to be recognized as Jews. So that's part of the complexity.
Jew, Christian, and love anything is particularism. Says I am a particular thing, you are not. Universalism focuses on the things that we have in common.
Yes.
So if our focus was constantly on what we have in common, we wouldn't have any conflict. We would be constantly looking for the things that further all of us as a species.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as we start saying I'm this and you are that, we have conflict. That's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. So
Yes.
we have to reject that nonsense that makes us believe things without evidence. Religion. I mean, religion is a real cause of conflict. There's no doubt about it. As soon as I say I'm me and you are not, I'm in conflict with you.
And
I'm an atheist, and everybody can be an atheist.
and Zionism becomes Jewish supremacy.
Absolutely not.
Yes.
Why is he prisoners of salvation?
I just wanted to say, I don't know all of the facts for certain, and I haven't read your whole document or even followed your.
Well, you couldn't. It just came out like this minute, and you're the first in the world to hear this. And you're witnesses now. I came here and did this, and this happened, and this is not AI writing this, or this is a real thing. You guys know me. You know enough about me that you would be able to tell if I was making up a story, I think.
It seems evident to me that you're a fairly well-meaning individual and you've simply been targeted by people with levels of power that you cannot comprehend. They've got connections that you were not aware of, obviously, because you were taken very much blindsided by this artificial Facebook post and then all the snowballing from there. So what I
Good,
want
well
to say
said, yeah.
is, what this shows me is it's part of a bigger conspiracy, if you will, of people with a large amount of power controlling, basically pulling the strings of us normal people, right? And if we allow ourselves to continue to label ourselves this or that and fight with others, common people that are look a little different than us or think a little different than us, it just allows the whole thing to perpetuate. And the people that are really have power continue to have it over us because we're busy bickering because he's an atheist and I'm Christian, or someone's old and someone's young, or someone's poor, someone's rich, like all these things.
Someone's gay and someone's straight.
Exactly.
Someone's trans and someone's anti-trans.
Dangerous road to go down when you start trying to blame anything on a group of people based on their race or their language or anything. I think ideas are far more dangerous, right? People with certain, a group of people with ideas are the problem, not people that look a certain way.
Yeah, well, what you're talking about is voicelessness, that who has a voice and who doesn't have a voice. Now, going into the academy, getting a PhD, getting a job, writing books, getting student reviews, going through all, jumping through all the hoops. And then you become an associate professor, and then you become a full professor. So I sort of felt, well, okay. And then suddenly, well, the rules don't apply actually. And suddenly your voice is removed. And, I couldn't walk into the Lethbridge Herald with this and say, like I've been blacklisted. And in order to get where I'm standing here, I had I had to take the initiative myself and try to get a voice. And I want to get a voice back. I don't like this quality. I used to get a lot of coverage as the Indian expert, at the University of Lethbridge as the Native American Studies Indian expert. I did, hundreds, maybe thousands of interviews. So I'm used to that kind of coverage. Now Francis is getting a voice. Francis is covered, but it's in a very stereotypical way. And I think the reality that here's Francis, like I don't see her, there's nobody screaming at each other here. We're congenial, we're convivial, and so she isn't allowed to have. She's only allowed to have. She's been caricatured. She's been given a kind of stereotypical role to be the archetypal Holocaust denier, Indian boarding school denier, Indian residential school denier. She's, when February 20, when her event was happening in early February, that's what everybody called her. And it was like an easy statement. And you could see that professors had been telling their students this and that she shouldn't be entitled to speak. And Paul got a flood of complaints for inviting Paul Viminitz, Professor Viminitz, sitting quietly in the corner there, who we haven't seen for a while. Paul was actually fired by the University of Lethbridge. Paul Viminitz, sitting right here. We've never got a real explanation of what really happened. I'm glad to see you, Paul. Paul, he was very instrumental when Goldie Morgentaler was complaining about me. Paul was actually complaining about Goldie Morgentaler. Goldie Morgentaler, did radio shows with Ralph Banmergy and talked about her role at the University of Lethbridge. presenting herself as if she was the only sort of vocal Jew on campus or sort of in the whole town. And she, avoided mentioning that you even exist. What's that?
Me, that was it.
Yeah, and you were at odds. And you actually did call her a bigot. And, Owen Holmes.
You've been around, you got at least 4 opinions.
Maybe if we just don't say anything, you might say more, which would be interesting.
I just wanted to know, what is the difference in terms of the gross of role they between Tenebris and CJ? Can I just correct one thing here?
Yeah. It's not Benai Brith, it's Benay.
Benay Brith.
Benay.
Yeah. Now, CIJA trumps all of them. It's like APEC. It's like the central agency. Now, CIJA is really behind the Bill 9 Act. They want hate speech, including life imprisonment. I mean, it's a really, that Shimon Shimon Koffler Fogel. Like I read in the Toronto Star, him coaching Mike Mann on how to handle this. The B'nai B'rith was boasting when I retired about setting. My retirement was the greatest event for human rights in Canada. I read that part. It was precedent setting. So in my case, was tenure made to disappear? They were trying to set precedents, not just, deep six me, but to set precedents to limit the recognition of academic freedom, to do the kind of thing that is going on in the United States now, big time, without anybody talking about it, even on campus here. Where is the voices of people in this institution who are, so get a lot of perks, they get paid well, they have protections. Where are their voices? Where is Dan O'Donnell? I spent about 2 months trying to see if I could work with him and work with Ulfa, but don't see him here. I put a sign in front of the English department where Rosie Morgentaler is based there. It may be nice to hear from Rosie Morgentaler. Rosie Morgentaler said, well, she didn't get a good response when she walked into Craig Cooper, the Dean of Arts and Science, and said, Tony Hall should be fired. Will you do that? And I guess she didn't get the response. Goldie Moore, yeah, sorry. And well, why should I apologize to you? But but then she said, I got a fantastic reception from Andy Haken. And Andy Haken is now president of a university in Nova Scotia, Francis Xavier, and Craig Cooper is in exile in the history department, and he's no longer administrator. And, it would suggest that he displeased Goldie Morgentaler, and Andy Haken pleased her. And what happened to Craig Cooper? I've written to him saying, you're my colleague, I'd like to talk to you about all of this. He was, when Chris Hosgood handled Goldie's complaint against me and said, no, I side with Hall. He didn't, he might have said some indiscreet things, but not enough to do a complaint against him, to discipline him. Then she passed it to Michelle Helstein. And Michelle Helstein took over the case and basically used it to climb up the ladder to become Dean of Arts and Science, to replace Andy Haken as provost, VP academic and provost. And so I've never, when I was trying to get into this room, she did send me a letter. It had 2 sentences, but she actually addressed me like a human. where anything I'd ever seen from her was always just one tirade of, the worst, most awful person, the most incompetent, the most hateful, anyway, so one has scars, but I should try to be generous about this, to try to take it to a higher level, to not treat it as getting a revenge, or to try to really be credible in saying, I want to help this school. I want to contribute to this school. I want to take what I've learned from this experience, cause it to be looked at. People in here might have a role in this, helping to get this out. You can, the obstacles to keep us voiceless, to keep us on the margins, to keep us away from those who have, the instruments of power and wealth and money close at hand, who seem to be able to do anything and they're not held accountable. It's sort of the illustration of Carney's speech, that there is this elite group and he is among them, and they seem to have this rules-based international order, except it doesn't apply to them. It doesn't apply to the military in Israel. It doesn't apply to the government of Israel. Will Netanyahu continue to be a sort of refugee, from justice, or will he eventually face the weight of the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice, these two world courts? Will he, how come he isn't in a jail cell right now? I mean, talk about taking impunity and pushing it in our face, like, you know, the whole entire military of the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces. And by the way, like, United States is not just complicit in genocide. The United States is a partner, is supplying the weaponry, is supplying intelligence, is got boots on the ground, is Donald Trump should be facing the same charges as Netanyahu is facing. And yet, are we going to see Iran, where I've been 6 times in the last few years, 2014, I started to go to Iran. I was invited to go and give a talk at Iran in December 14, 15, but I guess with the invasion imminent, or whatever the event was. What has Iran, who has Iran hurt? Like, how dangerous is Iran to us? I mean, they will be dangerous if they get invaded again, which they've already been. Where is some voices? Why is it so quiet around here? All these professors, living off the fat of the land, and taking all the perks, but none of the responsibilities, or very rarely, very few of them.
Well, professors don't identify themselves as being part of the working class, because there's an arrogance, an intellectual arrogance. But
They don't.
certainly some do.
Yeah.
Identify, and clearly they're part of the working class. It's just that we see workers as guys with a shovel and a pick. So,
Yeah.
but people who work for a salary and support the general economic society are workers. And I mean, more of the academic community should recognize this. I think they recognize it, but they don't talk about it, and they don't, because they're isolated because of the society's view is that academics are not workers, but they are. They work for a salary. They do all of the work that is required, like any other. What about high school teachers? What about kindergarten teachers? They're all workers. They're all part of the society that we have that supports it. The people who are taking advantage of it are the capitalists. who try to pay you as little as possible so they can make as much profit as possible.
No, I'm
That's
just,
what we have to eliminate.
Larry has a question. It's almost 6. Hannah has a question. Maybe, but I do want to use that entry point to say AI. What a crisis for the university. Turning over the university. Like, how are you going to have essays anymore? How are you going to know what was created? You know, we see all the time looking at videos on the internet that there are people, they look like people, they resemble people you know, but they're not. It's somehow artificial intelligence, and somebody's paying for this. But when you see an advertisement on television, you know who the sponsor is, but you don't know who's behind it. And so attribution, how are students or anybody, professors, going to know how to navigate through all of this? And you know, and what are they going to do about essays? Like, for instance, that used to be in social sciences, is a big way to mark people is essays, and now you know, and no talk about it, just silence, silence, cowards. Okay.
We've been very busy, even in Spain and everywhere else. Right now in Canada, we've got Bill C9 that's just been paused for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
While they do with something else, and then in 2 weeks they might come back to Bill C9, and I think that's the key one you're addressing in a sense, because it's about declaring things to be hate and then looking at all these kinds of punishments. So if anyone hasn't been following C9, that's a really big one.
And meanwhile, we're watching Rebel News tell us all about the wicked, evil Hamas and Western Standard, and you know, all these Zionist interpretations. And you know, when we criticize Bill 9, it's the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs that should be held accountable for pushing this sort of like Solzhenitsyn type of situation, you know, on us. Like, this is the end of Canada if we have lifetime imprisonment for hate speech. That's the end. And Carney, you know, how can he look at the mirror? How can he look in the mirror, the kind of censorship he's promoting? And you know, how many laws am I breaking here to talk my mind about something? What does it do to think you have to take a chance to say what you think? And what if, you know, you've worked on these subjects much harder than all the talking heads you see on CBC or whatnot? Larry, you've had your hand up.
Forgive me, but my memory's going, somebody pointed out to me the other day, and I don't remember if it's true or not, but that 9/11 was in the same 24-hour period as the Pentagon's revelation that they could not balance their books and were in fact unable to account for about $21 trillion, more or less. And if that's true,
No, I'll straighten that out, because
please do. I heard when the Pentagon was attacked and when the Pentagon wanted to air report.
well, let's go back to because I remember that was the moment where I sort of clicked on 9/11 and said, it's not as it seems, because the day before 9/11, Rumsfeld, where was he in? Was he in the Pentagon? But anyway, Rumsfeld, remember him? He gave a talk that at that point it was 2.3 trillion that was missing. So the Defense Department doesn't get audited in the same way, like organized crime or whatever. They can, if they go through the Defense Department, they can hide money easily. And so if you were going to have a news story saying that 2.3 trillion is missing from the Defense Department, wouldn't you put it the day before 9/11? Because the next day, when the news would have been, you know, front and center, was 9/11, and that was a much bigger story. So the timing, oh, this was just a coincidence. Now the 21 trillion, this missing money continues to go up and up and up, and Catherine Austin Fitts sort of follows this. For some time ago, they said it was up to 21 trillion. So there's some kind of sieve money that just goes disappeared. And I bet there's different books, accounting practices for different eyes to see. So the two are related, are connected. And 9/11, I believe, I went along till about 2008 and didn't see it immediately. Some people saw it immediately. But once I saw it, and then I started to get it, at first I'm saying, and for some reason, everybody who was questioning 9/11, they were always called anti-Semitic, whether or not they were mentioning Israel or not. So I was always going out of my way to say, I'm not anti-Semitic, and I love the Jews of Winnipeg, and the working class culture of Winnipeg. And Bernie Farber, I talked on the phone to him. He took me on as an anti-Semite early on. Anyway, so then you have to start to come to terms. Well, if the Muslims didn't do it, who did it? Then you start to get drawn into, well, what about the project for the new American century? What about all these neocons? What about the fact that the real payoff seems to be that you got people to contaminate their minds and hate Muslims. So when you invade Muslim majority countries, there's not a lot of resistance. People seem to go along with it. Netanyahu had a big, has had a big part of it. I mean, every Palestinian is a terrorist. Everybody who doesn't agree with him is a terrorist. I mean, this, the whole system started to cave in once you started to say, well, certain classes of people, they can't be protected. Preemptive warfare. That's how I felt I was facing, that I was preemptive warfare, attacking me and taking me out of the classroom. This was preemptive. He's saying this wasn't a disciplinary move. This is precautionary. Precautionary against what? That's what I was told in my early statement. And if being taken out of your job and cut to zero, if that isn't disciplinary and called a trespasser, well, what is disciplinary? But no, it was precautionary. And I could really, I still haven't got any traction when I bring that up, that I think I was the prototype, the test case to see, could you make up such thing as a sort of, I guess this could be used against me, but, by talking about true things, that makes you a terrorist, by not going along with the orthodox account of things, by looking deeper. I guess that makes you a terrorist. If you don't conform, if you're not compliant, I guess that makes you a terrorist. And then we remember all those stories about people being tortured and black sites and, getting the terrorists to tell what they were going to blow up next. Guantanamo Bay. Guantanamo Bay, was that just like a movie set? Do you just need a bunch of Muslim-looking people or dark-skinned looking people praying to Mecca with barbed wire and tell people that, look, we're catching the terrorists? The amount of chicanery, dishonesty. So little Dr. Mann saying his little piece about, well, he's characterized as being Holocaust denying, anti-Semitic conspiracy theorist. I mean, that's, I guess, pretty low down on, the higher levels of this. But I want something done about this. I want somebody else to, why should I be so lonely always on these things? Why is it so lonely to do this? And Francis is looking. Yeah, I know what you mean. Okay, do you think we've run the course? Yeah, you got one, eh?
I just want to mention a horse that I have in this race. That's concerning Bill C9 that was just mentioned. If that goes through, and it probably will to some degree or other, the Masoretic text of the Old Testament and the traditional text of the New Testament. And the King James English translation that we have. That's the only real translation based on those texts. It's gonna be banned.
Oh yeah, it's going to be censored. The New Testament, no hide laws. You got a point there? No, yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Okay, anybody? Okay, I think we'll draw this to an end. Thank you. Anyway, you navigated it as you would, and thank you for being here, Francis, and thank you for being here, all of you, Andrew, Larry, and Penny.
Speaker though.
Yeah.
I'm here tomorrow to do spectrum epistemology on whatever claims that Tony wants to look at.
Well, one thing I thought of is this paper that there might be people there who would be interested in this. And to reiterate, half this paper is kind of like basic facts of history, just to set the stage for what's going on with Palestinians these days and how come the situation is what it is. Unless you establish the background, the context, how it got to this point, to try to argue just with an eye to the present of what's going on this moment is almost impossible. So I'm trying to fill in, my instincts, I'm a historian, is to do that. So anyway, this is, I'm hoping to get this around, but thank you for being tolerating being with me when I presenting the first take of a much broader understanding that I've had so far of my own case.
You've never said that before. I'm so lonely.
Good, I'm just shutting, do you know how to shut down the,
Yeah.
to end the recording? Or maybe,
You just want to go here.